Your brother's new girlfriend literally kicks your sweet childhood dog right in front of you and then has the absolute unmitigated audacity to ask if she can move into your house. Let us dive straight into this absolute circus of a family dynamic. We have a 30-year-old guy who shares his home with his absolute best friend in the world, an 8-year-old golden retriever named Charlie. Now, if you know anything about golden retrievers, you know they are basically just giant, furry manifestations of pure love who think every single human on earth was put here specifically to pet them. The writer's 28-year-old brother, who we will call Dan, has been dating a 26-year-old woman named Emma for about a year. The writer admits he always got a weird, unsettling vibe from Emma, but kept his mouth shut to keep the peace. Fast forward to last weekend. Dan and Emma are hanging out at the writer's house. Charlie, being the sociable angel that he is, wanders over, wagging his tail, and gently nudges Emma for some attention. Emma immediately pushes him away, visibly irritated, and tells the dog to stop being so clingy. The writer brushes it off, thinking maybe she is just having a rough day. But then Charlie tries again later. This time, when the dog just tries to sit down next to her, Emma literally kicks him away. When the completely shocked writer asks what on earth she is doing, she just laughs it off and says she was getting annoyed with the dog. The writer stays remarkably calm, simply telling her not to treat his dog like that, and moves on to avoid a massive scene. But the absolute peak of the audacity mountain happens later that exact same night. Dan and Emma casually drop the news that Emma is dealing with some intense family issues at home, and they are looking to move in together. And then Dan actually asks if they can just crash at the writer's place for a while. The writer immediately shuts it down, explicitly stating he is not comfortable having Emma in his home after the way she physically struck his dog. Instead of apologizing, Dan loses his mind, calling his brother unreasonable, claiming Emma did not kick the dog on purpose, and telling him to just get over it. Dan even has the absolute nerve to suggest that the writer should just put his senior dog outside if he does not want Emma near him. Let us actually pause and examine the structural integrity of this narrative, because there are some massive red flags waving in the background. First of all, the reaction time. If someone physically kicks your pet in your own living room, the natural human response is not to calmly request that they stop and then continue hosting them for the rest of the evening. You throw them out the front door so fast their shoes catch fire. But the plot thickens drastically when we look at the internet sleuths who completely dismantled this writer in the comments. Multiple users pointed out that just 24 hours prior, this exact same user account posted a story claiming to be a 28-year-old female dealing with wedding drama, and in another post, they claimed their pet was a tiny kitten instead of an 8-year-old dog. The community essentially exposed the post as artificial intelligence generated slop designed purely to harvest engagement. But let us pretend for a second that this story is completely real, because the psychological profile of the villain here is absolutely fascinating. Emma is the kind of person who uses casual cruelty as a buffer for her own insecurities. She claims the dog was annoying her, which translates to the dog requiring a microscopic ounce of empathy that she simply does not possess. And the fact that she is currently having mysterious family issues that require her to flee her own home is the least surprising plot twist of the century. People who casually abuse animals and laugh about it do not have peaceful, harmonious relationships with their human relatives. The family issues are almost certainly just her own toxic behavior catching up with her. And then you have Dan. Dan is the ultimate enabler. He is so utterly blinded by his relationship that he is willing to completely rewrite reality, claiming a deliberate physical kick was an accident and demanding that his brother exile his loyal, decade-long companion to the backyard just to accommodate a woman who cannot handle a wagging tail. This touches on a deeply universal human frustration, the absolute entitlement of people who enter your sanctuary and demand you change your life to suit their dysfunction. Your home is supposed to be the one place on this chaotic planet where you and your loved ones, including your pets, are entirely safe from the unpredictable hostility of the outside world. When someone crosses the threshold of your home, they are implicitly agreeing to respect your peace. The audacity of someone walking into an animal's territory, assaulting that animal, and then demanding shelter in that exact same house is staggering. It is a terrifying glimpse into a highly specific brand of narcissism where a person genuinely believes they are the main character of reality and everyone else is just a background prop designed to serve them. We all know an Emma. We have all encountered someone who weaponizes their own irritation, making their bad mood everybody else's immediate problem. They use their discomfort as an excuse to be cruel, and when they are finally called out on it, they instantly play the victim, relying on weak-willed enablers like Dan to shield them from the consequences of their own terrible actions. The comment section on this post devolved into an absolute bloodbath, and it is glorious to witness. Naturally, you have the occasional contrarian trying to find a microscopic shred of grace for the antagonist. One commenter tried to play defense by mentioning that they have accidentally bumped into their pets before when the animals get underfoot, totally trying to normalize what happened. But the internet absolutely obliterated that weak hot take. The rebuttal was swift and ruthless. A massive golden retriever is not a silent ninja that suddenly materializes under your boot. You do not accidentally punt a massive dog that is actively trying to snuggle with you, and you certainly do not laugh about it and call the animal annoying immediately afterward. The sheer volume of people demanding absolute vengeance was incredible. One user masterfully flipped Dan's ridiculous demand on its head, saying that if the brother does not want the dog near Emma, then he should put Emma outside instead. Another commenter beautifully pointed out that Emma is essentially acting like a badly behaved rescue animal that needs to be rehomed by her own family because she cannot play nice with others. The consensus was an echoing, deafening roar of validation for the writer, with hundreds of people explicitly stating that if anyone laid a hostile foot on their pet, the perpetrator would be instantly escorted off the premises with extreme prejudice. People were incredibly quick to point out that if Emma feels completely comfortable kicking an animal right in front of its owner, the things she would do to that poor dog behind closed doors when nobody is watching are genuinely terrifying to imagine. So, looking at the absolute wreckage of this sibling dynamic, what is the final verdict? Am I the a-hole? Under no circumstances are you the bad guy here. Even if this story was cooked up in a digital lab, the moral absolute remains completely untouchable. You do not negotiate with people who mistreat animals. You are protecting an innocent creature that relies entirely on you for safety, and you are setting a rock-solid boundary against a deeply toxic presence. Dan has made his choice, prioritizing his unhinged girlfriend over basic human decency and familial respect. It is time to let him face the reality of his terrible decisions. If you want to absolutely incinerate this bridge and shut down the drama permanently, here is the exact unyielding text message you need to send to your brother right now. Copy and paste this directly. Hey Dan, I am completely done discussing this. Charlie lives here. Emma does not. Anyone who physically strikes an animal and laughs about it will never be welcome across my threshold again, let alone be allowed to move in. If you want to live with someone who treats innocent creatures like garbage, that is your choice, but you will not be doing it under my roof. Do not ask me again. Send that text, lock your doors, give Charlie a massive treat, and enjoy the absolute peace of a home free from their toxic nonsense. So what do you guys think? If your sibling's partner kicked your pet, would you just ban them from moving in, or would you have completely lost your mind on them right then and there? Tell me exactly how you would handle this nightmare scenario down in the comments. And hey, if you want to help this channel rapidly hit our massive subscriber goals so we can keep bringing you the absolute craziest Reddit drama on the internet, make sure you smash that subscribe button right now. Your roommate sneaks into the kitchen at 1 in the morning to devour the entire birthday cake your mother baked for you, and actually thinks a cheap grocery store sheet cake makes the whole situation perfectly fine. So when you obliterate her $12 artisanal ice cream in retaliation after a miserable day, who is really the bad guy? Let us get straight into this absolute dumpster fire of a living situation. We are looking at a 22-year-old woman living in an apartment with her 23-year-old roommate, who we will call Ashley. For the most part, they manage to exist in the same space without physically tearing each other apart. But Ashley has this incredibly infuriating, deeply persistent habit of just inhaling her roommate's groceries and casually promising to replace them at some vague point in the future. But things went completely thermonuclear last week. It was the writer's birthday, and her mom baked her absolute favorite childhood treat, a totally from scratch, incredible strawberry cake. The writer had exactly 2 slices on her birthday and carefully tucked the rest away in the fridge, dreaming of making this nostalgic maternal pastry last for the entire week. The very next day, she opens the fridge, anticipating a sweet slice of home, and the entire massive cake is just completely wiped out. Gone. Vanished. Ashley had stayed up until 1 in the morning watching Netflix and decided that this sacred birthday gift was her own personal midnight snack. When confronted about eating what had to be the equivalent of an entire bakery display, Ashley just kind of shrugged it off, offered a flimsy apology, and promised to buy a cake from the local store to make up for it. And to her credit, she actually did buy a basic grocery store cake, completely missing the massive emotional point that it was never about the sugar or the sponge. It was about the fact that the writer's mother put her time and love into making something highly specific and special. The sentimental value was totally lost on Ashley. Fast forward to yesterday. Ashley had been hoarding this $12 pint of artisanal lavender honey ice cream in the back of the freezer. She had been parading this dessert around, bragging about saving it for a special occasion for like 2 solid weeks. Well, the writer comes home from a brutally terrible day at work, her patience completely depleted, opens the freezer, sees the untouchable ice cream, and just absolutely annihilates the entire pint. Every single drop. When Ashley discovers the empty carton, she absolutely loses her mind. She starts screaming that the ice cream was her special, exclusive treat and her roommate had zero right to touch it. The writer just looks at her entirely unbothered and says they are even now considering the whole birthday cake massacre. But Ashley actually has the absolute audacity to argue that the two situations are completely different, calling the writer incredibly vindictive and angrily demanding both a financial replacement for the ice cream and a formal, groveling apology. And just to sprinkle some extra infuriating nonsense on top of this drama Sunday, the writer's boyfriend chimes in, calling his girlfriend petty and lecturing her that she should have just sat down and talked it out like adults instead of seeking revenge. Let us pause and really put this story under the interrogation lamp, because there is something deeply suspicious hovering in the background here that needs to be addressed. While the writer paints a vivid picture of a perfectly justified, deeply satisfying revenge arc, you really have to wonder if we are being fed a manufactured narrative. Some eagle eyed internet detectives in the replies actually dug into the writer's account history and pointed out a massive, glaring contradiction that throws the entire timeline into chaos. Apparently, just 22 hours before posting this entire roommate drama, the writer commented on a totally different thread, claiming that her mother had recently passed away, stating that the tragic loss had entirely changed her life. So, if her mother passed away, how exactly did she bake a fresh strawberry birthday just last week? A massive wave of people immediately called out the post as totally fake, accusing it of being an artificial intelligence generated piece of fiction or a ripped off story from another forum. People pointed out that the characters act almost too stereotypically awful, like a cartoon villain eating an entire cake in one sitting while watching Netflix. But let us suspend our disbelief for just a moment and assume the timeline is just tangled, or maybe it is a shared account, or perhaps she meant a stepmother. If we examine Ashley's psychology in this scenario, it is an absolute masterclass in narcissistic entitlement and cognitive dissonance. Why does Ashley genuinely believe these situations are fundamentally different? It is definitely not because lavender honey is somehow more scientifically sacred than homemade strawberry buttercream. It is because Ashley operates on a profoundly selfish wavelength, where the only pain or inconvenience that registers as real is her own. To her, eating the writer's cake was just a harmless, quirky little oopsie, because she did not personally feel the sting of the loss. But the exact second her own fancy dessert vanishes, it becomes an international war crime. This is a person who literally cannot comprehend a boundary or a rule until she is the one standing behind it, desperately trying to enforce it. She expertly minimizes the writer's feelings while entirely amplifying her own sense of victimization. This whole ridiculous fiasco taps into a deeply frustrating, intensely universal truth about sharing living spaces, especially in your 20s. We have all, at some point, encountered the roommate who treats the communal kitchen like a complimentary hotel buffet, armed with a weaponized casualness that drives everyone else completely insane. It is this bizarre, deeply entitled mentality where they genuinely believe what is mine, and what is yours is also mine. They casually graze on your expensive groceries, use your premium shampoo as bubble bath, and borrow your things without asking, always masking their blatant theft behind this breezy, oh my gosh, I will totally pay you back on Friday persona. But the spectacular thing is what happens the moment you hold a mirror up to their terrible behavior. The illusion shatters instantly. The performative outrage is always so staggering and entirely predictable. They build an impenetrable fortress of rules and regulations the very second their own property is at stake, proving that their previous casualness was not a cool personality trait. It was just a calculated strategy to take advantage of your politeness. And it is absolutely exhausting to live with someone who constantly forces you to be the villain just to enforce basic elementary school level human decency. You end up feeling completely crazy, hiding your favorite snacks in your sock drawer, or buying lock boxes for the refrigerator like a paranoid survivalist, just to avoid having the exact same exhausting circular argument for the fifth time this month. The sheer hypocrisy of rules for thee, but not for me, is enough to make anyone snap and eat a pint of artisanal dairy. The internet did not hold back a single ounce of venom on this one, and the comment section rapidly turned into an absolute gladiatorial arena. You have a few stragglers echoing the completely useless boyfriend, trying to take this absurd moral high ground. One commenter actually defended the boyfriend's stance, implying that talking it out is the only mature adult thing to do, and that eating the ice cream was just lowering herself to Ashley's toxic level. But the collective internet immediately, violently eviscerated that passive take. Dozens of users completely shut down the pacifist approach by loudly pointing out that the writer did talk to Ashley. She explained exactly why the mother's cake was emotionally important, and Ashley's response was essentially to shrug, minimize the pain, and replace an irreplaceable gift with a dry, thoughtless supermarket sponge. You cannot reason with someone who fundamentally refuses to respect you, and people were quick to point out that the boyfriend is either an absolute idiot or has zero concept of how selfish, toxic people actually operate. The absolute best part of this massive thread, however, is the giant army of people uniting to brainstorm the absolute pettiest, most mathematically insulting ice cream replacements possible. They are not just saying the writer is justified, they are vigorously demanding that she go to the store and buy the cheapest, most generic, flavorless store brand vanilla garbage to replace the $12 artisanal lavender pint. Someone brilliantly suggested buying one of those tiny cardboard cups of ice milk with the terrible wooden spoon attached, just to really drive the insult home. Another tactical genius chimed in and said she should buy the cheapest vegan ice cream just so she can claim it is technically a fancy dietary lifestyle option while knowing it will taste absolutely awful to a dairy lover. Some commenters demanded she buy a massive, cheap plastic tub of Neapolitan or rainbow sherbet. People were even plotting how to physically ruin the replacement, suggesting she let the cheap ice cream completely melt on the counter and then refreeze it into an impossible block of icy crystals before handing it over. And my personal favorite, multiple people demanded she buy Breyers because legally, according to food standards, it does not even have enough dairy to be legally classified as ice cream. It is just bleakly labeled as a frozen dairy dessert. The overwhelming consensus is crystal clear. If Ashley genuinely thinks a mass produced grocery store cake equals a mother's homemade love, then a discounted freezer burn tub of artificial vanilla product is a perfectly equivalent poetic exchange for her precious hipster honey treat. So, looking at the wreckage of this friendship, what is the final verdict? Am I the a-hole? Absolutely not. You are not the a-hole in the slightest, not even a little bit. You gave Ashley a front row VIP ticket to the very real consequences of her own wildly selfish actions. You spoke her exact language because it was the only dialect she could actually understand. However, your boyfriend might need to be seriously evaluated because defending a roommate who chronically steals from you is incredibly suspect behavior. He either grew up in such a healthy environment that he has zero radar for manipulative people, or worse, he is secretly hoping he can get away with selfish, sloppy behavior in your relationship in the future, just by offering a lame apology and avoiding any real consequences. As for the path forward, you have a distinct choice to make about how you want to handle the rest of your time in this apartment. You can take the boring high road, quietly buy a mini fridge with an industrial padlock for your bedroom, explicitly label every single item you own, and just silently ride out the rest of the lease until you can escape this absolute nightmare of a living situation. Or you can embrace the chaos and choose glorious, unadulterated petty violence. If you want to put the final deafening nail in the coffin of this argument, here is exactly what you need to text Ashley right now. Write this down word for word. Hey, Ashley, I thought a lot about our conversation, and you are totally right. We really need to respect each other's special treats. I left a replacement for your ice cream in the freezer. I hope you enjoy the great value vanilla frozen dairy dessert. I figured it was a perfectly equal trade, exactly like the store-bought cake you got me. Going forward, my food is completely off limits. If you touch my groceries ever again, I will not be replacing anything next time. Send that message, completely mute her notifications, and go enjoy the rest of your beautiful day knowing you won. So, what do you guys think? Was the revenge ice cream totally justified, or did she cross a line into being too vindictive? Would you have handled this roommate from hell differently, or would you have gone even harder? Let me know your absolute pettiest revenge stories down in the comments, and do not forget to hit that subscribe button for more daily insane internet drama. You cook your boyfriend a hot, fresh meal every single night for years, only to casually glance at his laptop and discover he's been secretly grading every single bite of your food on a master Excel spreadsheet like an undercover Michelin inspector. Let us rip right into this absolute disaster of a relationship dynamic. We are looking at a woman who has been dutifully feeding her boyfriend, putting in the daily, exhausting grind of planning menus, buying groceries, and cooking dinner. One morning, just before he heads out the door for work, she casually glances over at his open laptop screen and sees a highly formatted, color-coded spreadsheet titled Dinner Rating Sheet. She asks him what it is, and he completely panics. He gets totally flustered, practically trips over himself to hide it, and then scrambles out the door to work, leaving her standing there in stunned, humiliated silence. And when you actually look at the data on this screen, the level of absolute sociopathic dedication is staggering. This isn't just a fun little weekly diary. This guy has columns for the date, the dinner name, the count of how many times he has eaten it, a specific rating with decimal points, a lifetime rating, average for that specific dish. And this is the most psychotic part, a trend column with literal green and red arrows showing if her cooking is improving or declining, like she is a volatile stock on Wall Street. He has logged spaghetti and meatballs 287 times. He has eaten her baked salmon nearly 300 times. Do the math on this. That is thousands upon thousands of meals. We are looking at 3 to 4 solid years of daily home-cooked dinners that he has been silently chewing, swallowing, and then sneaking off to his little computer to log a 6.4 rating because the chicken stir-fry wasn't up to his elite invisible standards. She is completely speechless, feeling incredibly weird and deeply judged by a partner who always acts thankful to her face but is secretly running a quantitative analysis on her domestic labor behind her back. Let us actually hold this situation under a microscope and really interrogate the mechanics of what is happening here. There is a massive, glaring question about logistics that we need to address. How on earth does a man maintain a clandestine, color coded database of over 3,000 meals without his girlfriend ever noticing him updating it? He has to be running straight from the dinner table to his home office, wiping the marinara sauce off his chin, just to input a 7.2 before he forgets the exact texture of the meatballs. It is honestly exhausting just to think about. And if we build a psychological profile of this guy, he is approaching his romantic relationship exactly like an industrial engineer trying to ruthlessly optimize a factory assembly line. But the absolute wildest part is that he isn't optimizing his own output. He is entirely focused on analyzing hers. He genuinely acts like some arrogant anime protagonist who pretends to be quiet and unassuming at the dinner table while secretly believing he is a mastermind pulling the strings and logging the data from the shadows. But he isn't a mastermind, he is just a guy eating free food. If you look closely at the spreadsheet, the absolute highest score on the entire visible page is a 9 for barbecue chicken and corn. And as one brilliant internet detective pointed out, who usually mans the grill for barbecue chicken, he probably cooked that one specific meal himself, gave his own cooking the highest score on the board, and then went back to giving her lentil soup a 7.4. The sheer, unadulterated narcissism is off the charts. This entire bizarre scenario taps into a deeply infuriating, universally understood frustration about unpaid domestic labor and weaponized passivity in relationships. We see this dynamic constantly, where one partner takes on the crushing mental load of the household. They figure out the weekly menu. They make sure ingredients aren't wasted. They stand over a hot stove after a long day of work. They clean the pots and pans. And the other partner, they just show up. They pull up a chair, consume the resources, and suddenly transform into a reality television judge. It is an astonishing level of unearned entitlement to comfortably sit back and critically review a service that you are receiving for absolutely free every single day while contributing absolutely nothing to the kitchen yourself. If you are not chopping the onions, if you are not seasoning the chicken, your only job is to chew, swallow, and say thank you. You do not get to track a downward flavor trend on the taco salad when your own culinary contribution to the household is precisely zero. It transforms a loving act of care into a cold transactional performance review, making the person cooking feel like a stressed out employee rather than a valued partner. A relationship is supposed to be a partnership, not a relentless, years long audition where you are constantly being graded on a curve by a guy who cannot even be bothered to boil his own pasta. When this spreadsheet hit the internet, the comment section immediately erupted into a chaotic, absolute war zone of pure disbelief. Naturally, the defenders arrived first, trying to desperately spin this as a harmless quirk. Several commenters played the devil's advocate, arguing that maybe he is just a huge data nerd, or maybe he is on the autism spectrum, and spreadsheets are just his special interest. They claimed that quantifying his environment makes him feel safe, and he probably just loves logging data as a cute little diary of his life. But that hot take was immediately and savagely destroyed by the rest of the internet. An actually autistic commenter stepped into the ring and delivered an absolute knockout blow, stating that while neurodivergence might explain a love for spreadsheets, it absolutely does not explain secretly grading your partner, hiding the data from her, and getting totally panicked when caught. Autism is a reason for liking data. It is not a free pass to be a jerk. And the most damning evidence is in the spreadsheet itself. People pointed out that he explicitly skips the ratings for takeout and leftover nights. If this were truly just a harmless, neutral log of everything he consumed for his own dietary tracking, he would rate the restaurant food too. But he leaves those completely blank. He is exclusively evaluating her performance. He wants to quantify exactly how much room for improvement she has, which is why he has never given her a single perfect 10 out of 10 in over 3 years. But the absolute greatest, most humiliating discovery came from the eagle eyed detectives who zoomed in on the right side of his computer screen in the photo. Right next to his little spreadsheet of doom, this man literally has a Google artificial intelligence search open for how to increase calf size. The internet absolutely lost its mind. People were ruthlessly roasting him, calling him a bird-calfed boyfriend with the legs of a waterfowl. He is sitting there, actively skipping leg day, frantically Googling how to fix his tiny flamingo legs, all while having the absolute audacity to meticulously critique the woman who is providing him with thousands of hot meals. The disrespect is astronomical. One commenter laughed so hard they said he needs to spend less time on data entry and more time on the squat rack. Other commenters brought up the dark, infamous history of insane Reddit spreadsheets, reminding everyone of the guy who tracked every time his wife rejected him for sex, or the incredibly paranoid husband who made a spreadsheet tracking every single time his wife spoke to the mailman because she had the absolute nerve to wear a tank top in the middle of summer. The internet agreed that this boyfriend is officially joining the elite, unhinged Hall of Fame for creepy, relationship destroying Excel documents. So, where does this leave us, and who is actually in the wrong? You are absolutely not the bad guy for feeling violated and judged. Your boyfriend took something deeply personal, the immense daily effort and love you put into feeding him, and turned it into a cold, clinical performance review that he kept hidden in the dark. The sheer secrecy of it proves that he knew it was totally inappropriate. If he actually wanted to use this data constructively to help with meal planning or grocery shopping, he would have shared it with you years ago as a fun, collaborative tool. Instead, he treated you like a personal chef on probation. So, you have a choice. You can take the high road, sit him down, and explain exactly why this completely shattered your desire to ever cook for him again, effectively handing him the apron and telling him to enjoy his own culinary experiments from now on. Or you can choose the path of absolute scorched earth pettiness. I highly recommend the latter. If you want to shut this down and assert your absolute dominance, here's the exact text message you need to send him while he is at work today. Write this down, word for word. Hey, I saw the rest of the spreadsheet. Since we are apparently grading each other's performance with data analytics now, I have decided to start my own tracking sheet. I will be logging the frequency of your household chores, your performance in the bedroom, and, of course, the daily millimeter growth of your calves. So far, the trend lines are looking pretty deep red. By the way, dinner tonight is skipped. You can forage for yourself. Send that text, shut off your phone, and order yourself the best, most expensive takeout in the city. So, what would you guys do? Would you instantly stop cooking for a partner who secretly graded your food, or would you try to beat his spreadsheet system? Let me know your absolute pettiest revenge ideas down in the comments. And hey, if you want to help this channel rapidly hit our massive subscriber goals so we can keep bringing you the absolute craziest Reddit drama on the internet, make sure you smash that subscribe button right now.